Hi, it's Nell, and today is all about succulent propagation, so stick around for that. And as usual, there will be many more details in the blog post that goes along with this. It'll be on my website, JoyUsGarden.com, or in the top of the description box down below. At some point, your succulents will need pruning, and why not turn those prunings into new plants? It is really easy to propagate succulents, and what I'm talking about today, there's the three ways that I'm going to talk about. It's by stem cuttings, by leaf cuttings, and by division. And how you do it depends on the plant. So I'll go into that a little bit too. I used to propagate succulents a lot when I lived in Santa Barbara. I had a garden full of succulents, the front yard, I mean the front garden, the side garden, and the back garden. So I was pruning so much. I had cuttings galore, gave them to neighbors, friends, UPS man. You got a whole new garden. So I haven't done it that much lately, but I have done a lot of succulent propagating in the past. So the best times to propagate succulents are spring, summer, and the early fall, the warmer months. Winter plants tend to rest, so it's best to just leave them alone then if you can. And with the cuttings, the leaf or the stem cuttings, you need to let them heal over for a bit. And what healing over means, like a scab. We get a scab and it has to heal over. The end of the stem has to heal over because it's full of water and you want it to seal. So that's what that is. And here in Tucson, where I now live, it doesn't take long at all because it's hot and dry. In Santa Barbara, I had some cuttings in my back utility room that had been there for 8 months or so. So how long it heals over depends on the type of succulent too and where you live. Something with a really fine stem, like this is string of bananas or string of pearls or one of the strings, they only need to heal over for 1 to 5 days. Here, a day is fine because it's so dry, so those don't need to heal over as long at all. All right, so you don't need that many materials at all. You'll need some pruners. I use my pruners for thicker stems. I use my Fisker floral nips for finer stems. You might need a knife if you're going to divide a plant, but that's about it. And then of course a pot to put it into after it heals over, or if you're dividing, you will need a pot to put the new plants into. So I'll go into stem cuttings first. Now this is an Echeveria and this is a sedum. I'm not going to prune them now because I'm going to save that for the pruning video, but you want to make sure your pruners, whichever ones you use, are nice and clean and sharp. I've done a video and a post on how to do that. And then you just make the cut straight across wherever you want it to be. This has gotten very leggy, so I would probably cut it about there because a few nodes need to go into the soil. So I just wanted to show you those. And now on my panda plant, I am actually going to, don't you love the big tall stake in here? I'm going to be pruning it in the pruning video, but I'm going to take off a couple of the new growth stems up the top here where I pinched it before. So I'm going to get right in here. Actually, I'm going to take off a few of these leaves here. I'm going to take off just a couple. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to snip it right there and snip that off. I will take off the lower leaves, but I will do that when I'm showing, when I'm talking about something that pertains to the leaf, video, the leaf cuttings, if that makes sense. Okay, so I'm going to cut off this one here too, and I'm just going to snip there. So that gives me 2 cuttings, and it opens up the top too, because I will get another cutting off of here. You could actually take off these 2 too if you want to have even more plants, and then cut it off here, because as you can see, there's growth coming there and there's some growth coming at the bottom. I just don't want this to get that tall. Okay, so I didn't make that even a cut on this. It didn't cut off that even. So I'm just gonna cut it right there, and I'm gonna pretend it is healed over for a couple days just so I can show you. I have some of the mix here, and you might have to get something. I usually use a chopstick, but I don't have one. Just kind of get a hole, and then you just sort of work it in. And this is my DIY succulent and cactus mix I use. So any very light mix, a succulent and a cactus mix, is the best for cutting, because what I forgot to tell you is that some cuttings will show roots and others don't. Like for instance, I'm gonna bring this pencil cactus over. There are no roots showing on this. I pruned the pencil cactus in January. It is now the very last day of April. So this is how this cutting still looks, and there are no roots. The roots will form when you put it into the mix, so don't be concerned. The roots will come. Plant and the roots will come. So this is the last cutting that I have from the pencil cactus, and I'm going to give it to Brielle, who is behind the camera there. So I have it about half full up to succulent and cactus mix here, and then I'm just going to go ahead and scoop it around. And as I said, the roots will come on this. They aren't showing at all now, but that's okay. And these are top heavy. Yeah, these are really heavy, and it's a big cutting. I planted cuttings back into my very large pencil cactus. I just planted them back in, even bigger than this. So something like a bigger succulent like this, you can plant bigger cuttings or smaller cuttings, or like you can do it just a little branch, or even just a little tip, and it's fine. But I have a whole separate post on this one, so I'm not going to go into this because most of the succulents are smaller. But I just thought I would show this because she's here and she can take her new plant home. And I can get rid of the last cutting, although it's doing okay. It's been around for about 4 months. So she might just have to adjust it a bit when she gets home, because it's a bit at an angle. But these things grow so fast and so crazy, I'm not going to worry that much about it. I'm going to have to see if I have a stake out in the garage. I don't know if I do. I can't unstake my panda plant. It'll fall down. So that's all you do. And I don't use any compost or worm compost when things are rooting. I might sprinkle a little bit on in a few months after it has started to root, but that's all you do. Now I'm going to have to put this on the floor because I don't think it's going to stand up all that well. But that's that one. You know, this one is just a little trickier to work with. And there were quite a few drain holes in the bottom of that pot, and to keep the mix from just going out in the first few waterings, I just put a piece of paper over it so the water can flow out, but the mix stays in. All right, on to leaf cuttings now. So I'm just showing you these two because these are stem. You could do this string of buttons with stem cuttings too easily, or like this is one of the hens and chicks. This is probably more technically division because you're taking off the babies, but they're individual stems. So I think this one goes both ways. So now we're on to leaf cuttings, and these have been in here for a various amount of time. And this is what happens, is this one has been in the longest, and as you can see, a baby plant is forming there. And that is what that does. I'm going to take them all out and see how well formed the roots are. This is obviously a saucer. Oops, oh, wow, oh, this one has quite a few roots actually. That one is just starting. This is a silver dollar vine. It hasn't been in there that long, but it's got one root starting there. Oh, there's a baby plant appearing here. No, this is the panda plant. And there's a little baby plant down there. So it's really easy to do. It's just the method I do hardly at all because I have so many cuttings all the time and I'm just too impatient. But they all have some roots on them, except for this one. And the problem with this one, I did this on purpose, is that you need to get the leaf all the way back to the stem. You know, when you take a cutting, don't do like that there. That is what that one is. You don't have to get a hunk of the stem, but you need to get it all the way back at the stem. So just make sure you do that if you're doing the leaf cuttings. Don't cut the leaf off because it will not root, as you can see. Ugh, yuck. And I just stuck this in here. It's one of the hens and chicks. I'll bring this in. As you can see, the chicks, this is the hen, obviously, because it's the mama. And these are the chicks. And they get roots just forming off of the stem, and I just stuck that in there. I think I just did this like a week ago. See, so that's another way you can do that. That is, as I said, I don't know if that is, technically division or leaf cuttings, but I just have it in there. And this is, again, the succulent and cactus mix. I just either lightly press the leaves in. Don't get them down too far because you don't want them to rot out. You can actually just, sometimes I just do it on the top too, and the roots will come. So that is leaf cuttings. But a stem is not going to appear here and grow. It forms a new plant. So it is a much, slower way to go. But if you like to do that, hey, go for it. So now we're moving on to division. And with division, you can actually divide the plant into 2 or 3 plants, or you can divide off the babies, the pups, as I said, also called babies or offsets. And probably the one that you're most familiar with is aloe vera. I have a huge aloe vera growing outdoors, which you can see right here. But today we're talking about indoors, so I'm going to do this Haworthia and see this cute little one. It's got babies, there too. So some of them grow by babies, they spread. Around the hens and chicks do that too. Or there's this one, which I'm going to take out of the pot and I'm just going to simply divide it. You can, this string of buttons. Let's see if it's, yeah, I can just divide it in half. Sometimes you have to use a knife. And that's all you do. And then I put this into a pot with the succulent and cactus mix and this into the pot. And I would put in some worm, compost and some compost into these, because they already have a nice root system to them. So that is one way that you divide. And now we're moving on to the Haworthia. Haworthias make great houseplants. And the one that you're probably familiar with, the most common one, is the zebra plant, which I have in a planter, somewhere. Oh, it's over on the counter. But it's got more white, variegation in it. And so I would take it out of the pot here. Ooh, it's gonna fall apart, and then I would just gently pull those babies off, and that's all you do. And you may only want a couple babies, but this is going to give you 3 new plants. So it's really pretty easy. As a plant gets older, it gets a little bit more roots on it, and it's a little bit harder to do. Like my aloe vera that you saw out there is just so tight in the pot and so big it's a bit harder, and you might have to use a knife. But I just was able to do it, with my hands. And then you could, plant these in like a small pot, 2 of them, or you could do all 3, or you could just get 3 new plants. And your friends will love you. So now after you have done your stem cuttings or your leaf cuttings or your division, you want to place whatever it is you have propagated into a nice bright spot. Like if this mother plant was in my east window, my very bright east window, I would put the babies back there too, because they need that same exposure to roots. So you don't want to put them in too much sun because they could burn, or you don't want to have them in low light because they're not going to grow all that well, and the roots won't develop as well. And with these, I water them about the same as the mother plant. With the stem cuttings and the leaf cuttings, I water them a little bit more, or if the roots weren't showing at all, then I would water it a little bit more than I would an established plant. So it just depends on what your rooting, what your soil mix is, how warm your house is. For me here in Tucson, dividing this plant, I would probably water them every 6 days now because it is getting warm. I wait until the babies, those little baby plantlets are better formed before I take them out of the saucer and put them into a pot. But that one I would water a little bit more because the roots aren't that established. And Brielle, with her pencil cactus, she'll probably give that a good watering about once a week, because obviously it's been out of water for almost 4 months now, and it's doing just fine. So you have to find that fine line in between giving them enough but not too much. Okay, again, there will be pictures and more details in the blog post waiting for you there on my website, JoyUsGarden.com, or in the top of the description box right down below. So once you have one succulent, you'll have about 100. And isn't that fun? Propagating is easy to do. I hope you have found this video to be helpful. I really enjoy propagating succulents, and I'm sure you will too. So thank you for all your likes and your subscribes. I really appreciate them. Now let's get into our indoor succulent gardens, make some babies, and have some fun, and there'll be more coming on. and that's in terms of videos too. So I will catch you in the next succulent video. Bye.